I got a feeling that you got me covered too. I got you covered. I got you covered.
Hi, everybody. How is everybody doing tonight? I think I figured out the problem to why my ear things were doing what they were, why I was cutting out last time. It was because of the stuff on the computer. I had downloaded stuff that was on StreamYard's library to put it on some of the other channels we have, just on private, so that we have a recording of that. And I realized that the computer was kind of overwhelmed, and I took that off. So hopefully we'll be able to get it. Hopefully it won't quit this time. I'm hoping. Welcome, Sandy Wendy. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to come on. I'm looking for the Pacific article that I found that, of course, it's not here now, right? I found it, and now I don't know where it went to. They're probably in my, let's see. Hold on a second. We'll get it, right? We will get it. Let people come in for a few minutes. I'm doing well. Just kind of an update of where I'm sitting in everything. I'm doing well. Pain level has gone down, which I'm thankful for, because I don't really want to deal with that. And I want my normal pain, my pain level back. My new thing is I just don't like the norm. And I don't think I'll be used to the norm for a while. That's okay. This is part of the grief steps. You know, you all have been with me during this whole time. Found it. During this whole time as we've gone through this, right? We've gone through this. You've been through the diagnosis. You've been through the diagnosis of Patty. You have been through all of them. You've been through the diagnosis. You've been through the chemo with me, with her. You've been through the fact that they weren't going to stop chemo because there wasn't really anything that it was doing. You've been through all of that with me. And now we're kind of going through, and then she was in hospice. You were all here with me when she came up and visited, right? And so you've all been through this process with me. Now, as people are coming in, I want to kind of explain, because if you didn't watch the devotion behind it, you may not understand the purpose of that flickering light behind me. When we were at our conference, at the very end, the first night that we were there, they took, hi, Shatika, how are you? They took those tea light candles, you'll find them in the Dollar Tree, and they turned off all the lights in the sanctuary. And there was 600 of these candles, electric candles, but lights all over the sanctuary. And it was to state that nobody is alone, that no matter what, nobody is alone. Everybody has somebody. We're all there to support each other. And I loved getting my tea, my afternoon tea, that everybody's has somebody. And I love that idea. I love that premise. So what we've started doing, you'll see it in some of the devotions if I do them with Mama, is that light is on. I don't know if I'm going to try to find a lighthouse that has light or something, but when we're going live, at least in this environment where I can take it with us, it may not always be every time we go live. That light will be there as a way of saying to you, you are not by yourself. You don't have to do this thing we call life by yourself. You just need to come here, and we will be there as a support beacon or beam or whatever you want to call it, for whoever's struggling, whatever anybody is going through in this life. Gotta have the tea, right? So this first of all, this may be a little hard subject, but I think that this is an encouraging subject because I loved what the article said. 64 ways to meet grieving people where they're at. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. I am grieving the loss of somebody that has spent and been in my life for a majority of my life, right? So I'm at the stage of where, meaning me where I am at. Now, I want to preface this with this. We try very hard to keep the devotions pre-recorded. We try to honor everybody that comes in. We know everybody doesn't have the same faith we do, and that's okay. We love all of you. But I want to do this in a way that some of these I may be bringing in my faith a little bit, not to knock anybody else's faith, down. But I will say this, if you're going to meet a grieving person where they are at, none of the people that I reached out to the night Patty passed, and there were two, I excuse me, I blew up their phones a little bit. They knew from the 3 or 4 missed calls something had happened. And they knew by my voice, and my whole body was just shaking. And it was just because I was in shock. My counselor, my therapist said most likely it was adrenaline running, and the phones were just shaking. I was physically shaking. I was crying. And nowhere in there, when I talked to them, if I said to them, she's in the arms of Jesus, did they say, I don't want to hear that. So I want people to understand, for me, knowing that she's in that glorious heaven is a comfort to me. And it is something that it makes the loss of her a little bit less difficult to handle because I know I will see her again. So if you're going to meet somebody in the midst of grief, right, you have to be willing, if that is not something you believe, to either say, listen, I can't be there in that position, but maybe you could bring them a meal. Maybe you could send them a card. Maybe you can just send them a text with a hug. If you can't, if that to some degree, and I know for some degree, religion can be divisive. It can be triggering. And I'm sorry for that. But if you're in that position, then I would encourage you to have a conversation with your friend prior, if you have depending on the kind of relationship you have, to be able to sit down with them and say, listen, I know you believe this way. I believe that way. And so there's going to be times in both of our lives where we may have people that we lose. And how are we going to look at that when we're in our friendship together with each other? If you can remember to be there for the person, you all have been there for me during this week and a half. It feels like a century ago, but you all have been there for me. You have been there for me during the time and met me where I needed to be, whatever it was, to be in this. So good. This stage of grief. So we're going to go through, and I found this article kind of fascinating, and I will put it in the description below, to talk about 64 things. I thought that was a lot. My mother was even surprised. 64 things, 64 ways of meeting somebody in the midst of their grief. Where are you going to meet them at, right? And this is to anyone who has lost anybody or going through this in their lives at this time. Because it is... Hi, Aquaria. How are you? Or Aqua. Sorry. But welcome in. Thank you for coming on in. We appreciate it. And showing on up for it. I appreciate it. So we thought that this was interesting, that it talked about 64 different things that you can do for somebody that's going through grief. One of the first things is let go of any explanations or expectations. I had to realize very quickly within my time period after we got the news of Patty's passing that I could not hold on to any expectations. What I felt like I was up to from day to day varied. What I felt like doing, what I wanted to do, what I was up to doing, I didn't really have any expectations. I couldn't. If I had scheduled a live, I probably would have had to reschedule it because I wasn't up to it, even though I thought I was. My thing was do what you can, don't do what you can't, and don't do what don't do anything you think you can do if you can't do it. It was just simple things. And I did a lot of crocheting. I had a crochet project that needed to happen and needed to take place. Hey, Sunshine. Hey, Breezy Girl. How you doing? Welcome on in. Thank you for showing on up. So if you have expectations for somebody going through the grief process, and let me just say this, your grief process and my grief process are different. I'm grieving very differently for my aunt than I am than I grieved for my dad. He held a different position in my life than my aunt did. My aunt was like my big sister. And then the second one, and we may not go through all these, I'll put them in the description below. Just allow them to be who they are and where they are and to feel what they feel. I kept saying for the very first couple of days, this is all a dream. Can somebody just please wake me up? And then it changed to, I don't like this new norm. That's been my way for the past week. I don't think that's going to change. My struggle is sleep right now. And I've just resigned the view of sleep as sleep is going to come when it decides to come. And if it means I have to stay up, it will stay up. What I'm trying not to do is that I'll sit there and look at the ceiling for about a half an hour to an hour. And then I'll think, okay, well, I can't go to sleep and I'll just go and crochet. Well, that's great. However, it's not going to get me to go to sleep. So this morning I fell asleep about 3:30, 4 o'clock, which has been my norm for the past week and a half, on and off. And then Josh woke up with a sugar low about 7:30. His alarm went off on his phone. So I had to get up kind of half asleep after probably about 3.5 hours of sleep and go through and get him the things we have to get him when he's in a sugar low. And then I did that. And then 8 o'clock, I was asleep until 1. And my family has just allowed me to sleep. They've just said, we're going to let you sleep yourself out. And that's what I've needed to do. Not that with fibromyalgia, I wake up feeling like I've slept anyway, but allow them to be where they are. That's where I am right now. If I can't fall asleep, it's part of the insomnia, part of the grief, part of, all of the emotions going on with this. So accept them where they are. If you are grieving, if the grieving person seems lost, be lost with them. Only they can truly find their own path. I love that. Be lost with them in their grief. If they feel like taking a walk and not talking, the fact that you're just walking with them is huge. If they're sitting on the couch just watching movies, then be on the couch watching movies with them. Be lost. That's what I felt. And I still kind of feel lost. It's like, how do I navigate this? And I didn't know if there was going to be any kind of service for Patty. And there is going to be. I didn't realize that there was going to be. I thought it was going to be, a family relative and her daughter. And it's not. They're going to do it in Daytona Beach. So from what I can understand, it will be videoed or live streamed or something. So if it is, I will find a way to put that here so you guys can participate in that. If it's live streamed, I will share my screen and we'll do it. So I will let you all know of that. But I will do that in a way that I can show it on this channel. So there will be something Eventually, when I can get through it, I will tell Patty's testimony from the time that she was little, at least from what I can gather, and put it in a way that's honoring to her. I don't know if I can do it live. That I don't think I can do. Number 4, don't make the grieving person come to you. I had a phone call last week. I really didn't want to answer it. I was tired. I didn't really want to talk, but I answered it. And I'm really glad I did. And I spent an hour on the phone with the person, laughing and talking and crying and doing all the things. But they didn't have me make the phone call. They knew they needed to make the phone call. There was people that I did reach out to, but that specific person knew that they needed to call and check in and make sure I was okay. And so make sure that you are absolutely in the position of coming to them. Wherever they are, come to them. Number 5 is don't expect them to want to raise their spirits or rush them through the grieving process. There were times where I literally came on here, and I still will when I think of Patty, and cry. Because there's been days where I've looked at my phone and I've just felt like the weight of the world. I don't want to be happy. This is not a happy time. I'm not enjoying the season of my life, whatever it is. Excuse me. So don't expect them to want to raise their spirits. If they're down and they're grieving, there's a reason why they're down. Now, that's different from they're down to a really depressive down stage that may need some medication and so forth and some attention. Pay attention to those. I'm not talking about just feeling down. I'm talking about not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to care for themselves, a really, really low point where they may need some medication to be on just to help them through that time of maybe a severe depression coming on. So, don't rush them through, but pay attention to maybe a friend or a family member going through that so that you can make sure that you're there and that you're saying, this just isn't right. Shortly after my grandmother died and passed away, we had Christina, and one day, I have pictures. I mean, her whole face changed, her self changed. She was acting differently. She was just lying around. She was crying at the drop. I mean, she was so off to what her norm was that as a mother, I knew something was wrong. Hi, Malvik. How are you? Something was wrong enough for me to go, wait a minute. I need to call her doctor. And that's when we started putting her on a low dose of depression medicine. And within 24 hours, she started coming out of it. So even though we need to not rush them through grief, we need to also not expect them to raise their spirits. We need to watch if they're going in a position that putting them really down in a really, really not good place, and make, either if you're the person caretaking for them or a family relative, just say, you know what, we need to really watch that because it may not be a safe level to go through that. Don't minimize their thoughts and feelings, right? Don't minimize where they're at. If I sat there and said a couple times to people, and I just put it in text, can somebody please wake me up from this dream? I don't want to dream this way anymore. Can just somebody please wake me up? I said that probably about 4 or 5 times to several different people. And they just said to me, you know what? I wish I could wake you up, but this really happened and we're here for you. They just acknowledged that that was an okay place for me to be. It wasn't that I was sitting here trying to, I was expressing how I felt, and it was okay to feel that way, right? Don't minimize how they feel about the magnitude of the loss. I mean, this was my aunt. I haven't experienced yet, and hopefully I've told my mother she can't leave until she's 150. But I have said that in the in the whole thing that I don't want to I don't the loss of my dad was different than the loss of my aunt, right? So maybe to somebody they could think, well, this is just your aunt. This isn't your mother. Like, I have no idea how my cousin is doing right now. This was her mother. And so I'm sad, but I'm sure she's devastated in a way I'm not devastated because this was her mother. I've lost my dad. I know the magnitude of that. But still, this person was an intricate part of my life, and she's not there anymore. She's never going to pick up the phone and call again. That's huge. I don't have on my side of the family a huge family. I have a very, very tiny, tiny family. Okay? It is so tiny. And so everybody that I lose seems like huge because I don't have a big family on that side. And she was an important part of my life, and she will be tremendously missed. Know that what a person thinks or feels in grief isn't always rational, and that's okay. Like I kept saying to people, can somebody just wake me up? It felt so ridiculously silly to say I'm dreaming. If I go to sleep and I wake up and this is still the reality, I don't want to go to sleep again until I can wake up and this is all just a dream. It was absolutely not rational. It happened. She was gone, but I really didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to believe it. That's where I was probably for 4 or 5 days. And we went to Josh's doctor. And his doctor just looked at me and said, "I'm so sorry for your loss." And then he sat there and he said, "Well, that's part of life." And I know myself, thank God I was not awake. But I'm telling you what, it took everything for me to say, this is an endocrinologist that's thinking numbers, is bedside manner. And I have not met too many endocrinologists in my time that really, except for one, really had the greatest bedside manner. They're number people. And I understood that, but it was like it took everything for me to sit there and not scream at him because I'm like, I understand this is part of life, but this was my aunt. And this is not something, this is only 72 hours old. And I just spent the entire time going to the doctor, crying my eyes out because there was this beautiful sunrise. And I thought of my aunt. Can you just be a little bit more compassionate? But he was there to take care of my husband. He wasn't there to be compassionate, to me. He did it in as a very matter of fact as he could have. God love, he's an amazing doctor and he's done amazing with my husband as far as taking care of all of his needs and so forth. And so I am very grateful for that. But again, they're not always the rational things to think of. Allow the person in grief to exist without trying to change them. I didn't want to be changed. If I wanted to sit on the couch doing nothing, if I wanted to sleep, if I wanted to eat whatever it was that I wanted to eat or not eat, don't ask me to do this, right? Just ask me to be in this moment. I still feel like I'm in the moment, right? Another thing is sometimes we as people don't listen, right? We need to sit there maybe with somebody that's in grieving. And this is where kind of I'm going to bring in a little bit respectfully of a little bit of faith coming into the play. Because listening means that maybe you're calling a friend that's walking in faith and believes in Christ and all that kind of stuff. And you don't believe that. You can either say, I can't do this, or you can say, I'm not there to be converted, and that friend hopefully is not trying to convert you or anything like that in that moment, but that you're there to listen. I had people that I knew were not walking on the same path I was in that direction in that part of my life, but they listened to me when I sat there and I said, Patty's in the arms of Jesus. They listened to that because to me that made myself, I felt better. Gave me more peace. I know she was saved. And so listening, actively listening to somebody doesn't mean that you necessarily have to agree with them. But if you can say, I'm going to listen because I love you. I don't agree with everything you said. And that's okay. But you're hurting, right? That's what the candle is back there for. People realizing that they're not here by themselves. And you guys were there for me to reach out to say, you're not doing this by yourself. The night Patty died, 16, 17 people showed up at the chat at 11:30, 11:45 at night to say, we're here. And I mentioned the fact that Patty was in the arms of Jesus. And nobody said, they all were like, we're here for you, Mary. We're not here for anything else, to listen, to be here, to know that you're not by yourself, to know that we're all here for you. We know this is going to be a difficult time for you and your family, but we love you. That is exactly what I needed to have. And so listening to somebody, maybe putting your feelings aside and just listening, they need that. They need to talk about their loved one. They need to talk about what is comforting to them during that time. So listening to them and being respectful of that. Don't feel the need to come up with something comforting, helpful, inspiring thing to say. Oh, please don't. I know when people say somebody dies or somebody passes away, right? We get into this position where we have no idea what to say. The only thing we say is, I'm so sorry for your loss. It's the only thing that we can kind of come out of our mouth with, right? Because we're sorry for them. We know their heart is hurting. There were people that said that to me, right? I'm so sorry for your loss. But here's the thing about it. You don't even have to come up with that. It could just be simply, I'm here for you. I love you. I am so sorry. I'm going to be on the phone as you cry. There is nothing that anybody could say to me that was going to comfort me. Really, honestly, there wasn't anything. My heart was hurting and it's still hurting. I just want people to be there while I'm going through this because I don't like where this is right now. I don't have to like where this is. But I'm so grateful that people are there to help me through during this time in, our family's life. So I think that really is important, that we don't feel the need to come up with any kind of magical words, right? Simple, I'm sorry, I'm here to listen, I'm here to be a shoulder to cry on, can be very, very easy and simple. Don't search for a silver lining. There was no silver lining in Patty's passing. I know she's out of pain. Maybe that's the silver lining. But at the point when I found out she was gone, there was no silver lining. If somebody had said to me, well, she's out of pain, I know this. I don't want to hear that right now. I'll hear that later. I don't want to hear that right now. My heart's hurting. So if we remember that to the person that's going through it, there is truly no silver lining. There's so many on here. It's awesome. Be comfortable with silence when there isn't anything to say. There has been times I've reached out to people and have literally just cried. No words have come out of my mouth. Nothing has been said other than just tears. Because there is nothing to say. So allow a friend to be able to tell them, listen, if you need to call and cry, I'm here to listen to you cry. I know I had that. I know I still have that, for people to be willing to call up and cry over the phone with me, right? And I am so grateful for that. That people are like, you know what, you need to cry? Let's go ahead and cry, right? So, just be willing to be silent helps. And you can do that. You can be silent in the mix of um your grief, and or the mix of the other person. Allow yourself to be silent. Allow them to be silent, right? Just allow them. If they need to cry, they need to cry. And that's all that needs to happen, is that they need to deal with those emotions, and you are the person that can be there to be able to assist with that. So listening to, just realize you don't have to come up with any fancy words. You just have to be able to be there in the sense of, you're going to be there so that you can just, listen. You can just listen. No fancy, nothing required. Just be there to listen. Hold on a second. I got to get to my list. And one's go in the chat for anybody that needs them right now. Anybody going through anything. So, be okay with quiet happening. It's okay to have quietness. Okay. 15. Like I said, I may not be able to get through all these, but a lot of them are really, really good. Try not to compare the person's grief or loss experience to yours or anyone else's. Like I said, we all grieve differently. There are 3 people in this house. 4 if you include my daughter, who's not in this house, but she's grieving differently. There are 4 people. We all are grieving differently. I'm grieving differently than my husband's grieving. My husband's grieving differently than my mom's grieving. I'm grieving differently than my mother's grieving. We're all grieving differently. It doesn't mean that any of those griefs are wrong. I don't understand what it's like for my mother to lose Patty as a sister-in-law. I've lost her as an aunt. So I can't understand where she's at, because I'm not there. I haven't lost a sister-in-law. I've lost an aunt, right? So we're all grieving differently. So for you to sit there and say, well, I know what this is like, you don't, because you're not in their shoes. So, we've all lost somebody, but everybody's grief is different. Everybody's grieving of somebody is different. And we need to walk through that with somebody in a loving and powerful way. Try not to imagine how you would think or feel or act if you were there. In reality, you have no idea how you would think, feel, or act, even if you experience loss yourself. And I may end up taking this list and we may break down the first 32, because I think they're all excellent so far. Let's do this. Let's break down from 1 to 32 tonight. And then I'll do another live stream maybe on Saturday. And we'll break down right before we go on Alfonso's channel. We'll go 33 through 64, because I really want to tackle each one of them. So we're going to do a part 1 and a part 2 of this, because they're just so excellent. So we're going to do the first 32 today to get through. So again, try not to imagine how you would think or feel or act if you were there. if you were them. In reality, you have no idea how you would think, feel, or act, even if you were experiencing the loss yourself. Like I said, there's 5 people in this, or 3 people in this house. Christina is. I can't sit here and say to my cousin, I know what you're going through. She's lost her mother. I've lost my aunt. It's the same person. We've lost the same person. But it's a very, very different feeling for my loss over my cousin's loss. And I'm not going to sit here trying to tell her I know what it's like. I don't, thankfully. And even if I had already lost my mother, which I haven't, and I'm very grateful I haven't, I would still not try to compare my loss with her loss. Right? It's like trying to raise a special needs child. I have met special needs parents. I have met parents who have raised an autistic child. Every child is different on the spectrum. Nobody is the same. If we go by what we say here, hi Sandy, how are you? Every child is different. Every person is different, right? We say, be proud of being yourself because everyone else is taken, right? We say that. So if we remember that everybody's different and everybody is individual, I could sit there and kind of, swap notes with another mother who has an autistic child, and I have. But what worked for me is not necessarily going to work for that individual. So that's really important to remember. Your experience and your loss, don't try to compare them. You just need to literally, that's why I love the title of this article, Meet Grieving People Where They Are At. Meet them. Come next to them. Sit beside them. Bring them a meal. Meet them where they're at. Follow the grieving person's cues, right? I try to go to most doctor's appointments with Mr. Blessed to Crochet, but there was a day he had a sleep appointment. And it was actually the day after the it was the day after I can't think what it was now. It was the day after after the conference, and I was in no shape to go. And I told him straight out. I said, I'm in no shape. And when we went to I usually have my counseling appointment, right? Forgot what I had done for it. I may have to go and look that up. When I had gone through and looked at the counseling or Wednesday thing is usually when my counseling appointment is, and I literally remembered saying to I think it was, no, we went to the doctor's appointment, like all my days are all together, and we came home, and I'd had a really terrible night's sleep the night before. And so we went to his doctor's, which was 8:00 in the morning. Okay. And we came home and I said to him, I literally was nauseous because I just hadn't slept enough. And I had a headache. And I said to him, get on with the therapist. If I'm asleep when the therapist calls for our session, just let me sleep. And I woke up, I heard him talking, and I woke up and actually tried to get up and tried to even talk. And my head just was pounding. I'm like, I didn't have it. And he just said to the therapist, she's asleep. She just hasn't slept well, and I'm not waking her up. And my therapist was tremendously understanding to the fact that I literally did not have the energy to talk to her. So again, give in to their cues. My husband, we finished watching Chips. this series, right? And we watched it out there, and I was crocheting. So I had to get a project done. That's why I've kind of been, MIA to some degree, and I'm almost at the end of it. But I had a project that needed to get done, and I know he didn't want to sit and watch, Chips, but I wanted to watch it. Hi, Indigo. I wanted to watch it. So what did he do? He did it. He sat there and he watched Chips with me because he said, I would have rather you been out there so that if you needed a person to cry with, I was there. You weren't in your room. And I found out if I was in my room, the blanket wasn't getting worked on because all I was doing was sitting there with my phone going through it, trying to escape everything. So if I was out there doing that, right, then my focus was on something else beside. And then it goes totally right. Everyone grieves differently. So again, and we're going to do the first 32. There's 64 of these, and they're awesome. And I didn't really look at them beforehand too much. So we're going to do the first 32, and then on Saturday before Alfonso, so we'll finish the rest of them. So I really want to go through each one of them. So listen to what their cues are. Number 18 is allow the person's grief to exist without trying to change it. Absolutely. I don't want to forget that Patty passed last Sunday. I don't want to forget that she's never going to call again right now. I don't want to forget that she's not here right now. I don't want to forget that. And if somebody came to my house and said, come on, let's go out to dinner. Can we bring the dinner here right now? Because you know what? Getting dressed, I'm hurting still a lot more than I would like to, what my normal pain level is and what I would like to be able to do, right? Thank you, Indigo. Yeah, I'm trying. Sorry for your loss. It sucks royally, and it's okay to have those feelings and cry, yes. But if somebody came to my house and said, okay, let's get dressed and you go out, I go, no, I don't want to go out right now. Can you bring the food here and I'll eat it with you on the couch? Can we not please go to a noisy place? Like I said, the night, and those that didn't listen to the devotions, the conference, it was 12:30 at night. And I'm finishing up that cute little, and if you haven't seen them, the short I did with Mocha today, it's adorable. This short of Mocha going, which she had never done before, going to the creek and laying out in the thing. And I decided to put Mocha in a phone, right? And I was playing with it, and I said, well, Mocha's having fun, Mocha's silliness. And I said, well, Mocha's calling. And that was all it took. And I bursted out in tears. And Josh was beside me and goes, are you okay? And then he put his hand on my shoulder. And I'm like, I'm not okay. Because it reminded me that she's never going to call again. That phone will never ring with Patty. And I got done crying. He had at that point fallen asleep. It's like 1:30 now. By this time I uploaded everything, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, we got to be up at 6:30 in the morning. And so he came over and he put his hand on my shoulder. He put a pillow underneath his arm so he could have his hand on my shoulder for however long it took me to go to sleep. So he didn't try to change it. He just was there with me in the mix of it, because it was this simple thing of Patty's never going to call again. And it set me off like you couldn't believe. The night of the conference, we're sitting there, and there's two gospel songs talking about heaven, and Patty, she's seeing Jesus's face, and I'm sitting there in the conference crying because I'm imagining Patty in that moment. And the lady next to us that goes to our church handed me a Kleenex because she knew I had just lost somebody that meant something to me. I have become sort of a grief I've become sort of a grief waypoint for my friends. It's shown me so much beauty and the importance of being there and holding the space. Absolutely. Um, and that's what often people need. Absolutely. And I've said on the devotions, and I didn't think that any service was going to be done, but apparently there is. I don't know if it's going to be videotaped or live streamed. I don't know all the details, but there will be something. There will be done something in Daytona Beach. And if it's live streamed, I will figure out how to share it on this channel on my screen. I may have to do some test runs on StreamYard and sharing your screen and so forth, so I could be in the corner. But I will figure out a way to do it, either to upload the video here or do something so that you all can be a part of that. So I wasn't sure if they were going to do a little something, and apparently they are. Like I said, you guys have been through the journey, so we'll figure that out. As I get more details, I will let you know. We did that one. Number 19, don't try to fix things. Don't try. You're not going to try. You have to let them do it at their speed. Right? I had to pull back a lot because I am dealing with grief underneath the wings of somebody that is dealing with fibromyalgia. Right? I am dealing with grief. And so there was times I was just sitting there going, and getting up was so difficult. There was times where, we don't usually bring my walker in the house. It's usually outside in the garage or in the car when we're going places. And it literally was in the house because I just thought, if I get up from here, I may not be able to walk to where I need to go without holding on to something. And there was one point where Josh was like, and when you walk, I'm literally walking behind you, because my pain level was so bad for the first couple of days, and it's slowly reducing itself, that, I just had to literally I just, whatever I had to do, I just had to do. Don't put anything on me, I just have to do it. Whatever needs to get done, it gets done, and whatever doesn't. And I just kept thinking, this is all a dream. That's all I kept thinking in my head. This is all a dream. Honestly, don't know for myself where I am with grief. Lots of loss between 18 and 27. I think I have had many delayed processes, but they feel safe because I know I actually understand. And two, if you are on the spectrum, if you have somebody that is dealing with grief, dealing with a loss, and they're on the spectrum, oftentimes that will take a very different, even a range of that. When we lost my uncle, which was Christina's uncle, she literally was, it took a year for her to even cry. And I'll never forget the phone call on the way home from school, and she was in hysterics. She came home and just fell apart. So sometimes people on the spectrum, those that are dealing with autism, sometimes have a very difficult time processing their emotions. It is not uncommon for that. They're not people that cry about it. And I know she did a little bit on Monday. She didn't really cry when we told her the news. I really realized what her reaction was going to be. Kind of disbelief. I cried, I think, more than she did. But I don't think she's begun to deal with it totally. And it may take her a while, right, to process it because of the autism, because of the special needs. So again, I probably will do a whole nother thing on dealing with special needs, right, and going through that grieving process. I would like to start, and we'll talk about that at the end, about doing some things just to kind of catch people up, but I want to get through at least a 32. At least I'll try, because this is going to be a two-parter. There's no way to get through them. They're all so good. Don't feel the need to offer solutions. That kind of goes with fix. Don't sit there and say, well, let's do this, let's do this. You have to just be where they are. Don't try to offer solutions. Don't try and force the person into new feelings or perspectives. They're grieving. Their heart is hurting. They don't want new perspectives, because at the end of it, depending on the person that they've lost, their life may very well change. If they've lost a child, their whole lives, if it's their only child, their whole lives, and they can't have any more, their whole lives are just, their whole purpose is gone. If they've lost a spouse, maybe they've lost a financial person that is helping them, keep where they're living. They may have to change living situations and everything. To them, their world has literally come crashing down around them. There is no perspective that is going to be able to change their emotions at the time, and they have to be able to process through them. Just show up and be present. Don't we do that all the time here? Right? We're showing up and we're present for each other in the moment. And that's sometimes the greatest gift that we can ask. When I told people the night Patty passed, I let a couple people know. I said, you just can't put it out there, because we've got to go tell Christina before Facebook blows up and she finds that out through scrolling through her phone, right, the next day. So I told a couple people, well, I knew that I couldn't go live until about 11:30, 11:45 at night. I didn't quite know when, if we needed to sit in the car for 3 hours with Christina or go in her house and sit with her for a while. That's exactly what we were going to do. Ever she needed, we were all going to be there for each other. But I'll tell you, when I hit that live button on our way home, 16, 17 people showed up in the chat to be present for me and my family for 45 minutes. I didn't feel alone. Even though I was surrounded by my family, I didn't feel alone. I knew I had tremendous support to carry me throughout the week. And people were checking in to just say, how you doing? Send in hugs. Make sure you get sleep. Do what you can. They were a couple people that were closer to me and said, are you eating? Are you sleeping? Those important things to just remind me to do them. But just showing up and being present can be a huge thing for somebody going through grief. Be willing to allow the pain to exist. And the kind of two going together. Be willing to allow the pain to sit, and be willing to sit with the pain. A lot of times in life, we are very uncomfortable. Hi, William. Very uncomfortable, right? To be surrounded by people that are hurting. It's not a comfortable place to be. We want to get in and try to fix it. You couldn't have fixed me last week. I don't know if you could fix me this week when it comes to Patty. But we can't fix it. We have to be willing to say, this is uncomfortable for me. I'm sure it's tremendously uncomfortable for them. I could tell you it was. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Let's find everything I can do to not have to feel it, right? And get out of all these feelings. But I had to be in it. I had to be a part of it because it was happening to me. So allow the pain and realize that it may be uncomfortable to you, but your presence there with that individual means more than what maybe they can express. I cannot express, my family cannot express the fact that you all were there for us to help us through a tremendously difficult time. And you still are. But sometimes they may not be able to express how much it means that you're there, or the fact that you brought dinner. I know when my uncle passed away, there was a Danny's Meat Market. He's since passed away. His name was Joe. He inherited Danny's Meat Market, but it was such a staple in the area. And we stopped off to tell him that my uncle had passed. And he said, come back to my shop. In a couple of days, he said, or I think he called, and he said, we have a dinner for you. And it was just full of a dinner. I think it was a turkey dinner or something. I can't remember what it was, but we didn't have to worry about food. It was just a simple act of doing something nice for somebody. That even cooking, we haven't really got back to cooking. It's like, what can we find in the refrigerator to eat that we don't have to put together and cook? Because it all seems overwhelming. Go pick up a chicken at Sam's Club. They cost $4.98. Maybe if you don't have a membership, maybe a friend has a membership, and you say, "Listen, a friend of mine is grieving the loss of a relative. Can we stop off and buy some chickens? I can just drop off chicken, Caesar salad, and so forth." Or they have them in the grocery stores. Go pick up a chicken dinner. Doesn't have to be anywhere fancy. And I remember falling and hurting myself. I slipped. It's one of those like ice pack things, and it had dribbled some of that solution out on the tile floor, and I didn't see it. This was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I slipped and fell, and I hurt myself for many months on my knee, my back, and everything like that. And I remember there was somebody that lived an hour away, and they couldn't come to bring us dinner, but they called a local pizza place in the area and ordered us dinner. And they called me and said, "Tell me what you like, and we're ordering you dinner." So even if you don't live in the same town, there's DoorDash, there's restaurants. You can order dinner and have it delivered to that person, and say this way they don't have to worry about dinner. And maybe they don't feel like eating, but they've got a family to feed. Something to think about. Put your own awkwardness and discomfort aside. That kind of goes back with being, allowing them to be in pain, allowing them to grieve. Again, we do not like to see other people hurting. It is a very, very uncomfortable feeling, right? But we have to be willing to say, you know what? I need to be there for my friend. That's all that matters. I know I don't like this. I can't fix this. There's nothing you all could do to bring Patty back. I wish you could. There's nothing you could do. I have to be willing to go through this. I don't want to go through it, but I have to go through it. And I will, because I've had all this wonderful support. And I am so grateful for it. And recognize if your own discomfort with the person's thought, emotions, experience is guiding the support you're providing. So you need to pay attention to your own self. It kind of goes back with what Indigo said. It's important to give yourself room. It is okay not to be okay. Not to clean, not to look, not to self-care or not care, not be on. It's important to self-care. Grief is a vision of self-care, and it is true. But I think that we need to also realize that if we're helping somebody through grief, and maybe this is triggering to us, we may need to pull away for a little bit, right? We need to make sure that we're self-caring for ourselves as we're helping somebody else go through that time in their life. So we need to realize that we need to self-care for ourselves, but we need to realize that if they're going through a grief that's triggering to us, we may need to pull back. We need to make sure, of course, that they are, that they've got the support. And as long as they've got the support around them, what we don't want to do is what they're going through to trigger us so much that we are not in a good place ourselves. So that is something to pay attention when it comes to how you are feeling. Because you at first have to remember, they tell us to put the oxygen mask on first and then put it on a loved one. So we got to make sure that if we're helping somebody through grief, if we're there, we got to make sure that we're also can handle doing that. When my grandmother was passing away, there was a family relative of ours that was there. And my grandmother and her hadn't talked for a while. And I think it was because it was hard for my grandmother to have her there because it brought back memories of my grandfather and happier times. But she was such a helpful individual for my mother to be there and to have this person as a way of helping her through, her mother passing away and my grandmother passing away. And she was so helpful. She would sit With my grandmother, she brushed her hair. I think there was healing that happened between the two of them. And she was there at times when my mother needed to just come home and rest. And so she could be there. She was in a good position to be there, and she was such a helpful thing. So, you know, we have to just make sure that we're self-caring for ourselves in the position of that. Don't judge or shame emotion, whatever it may be. That's a good one too. Whatever they feel is what they feel. If they're angry, if they're numb, if they think that this is a dream, whatever it is. Like, I know it was silly to keep telling people, I feel like I'm dreaming. Can I just wake up? And them's response was, well, you've told us that 3 or 4 times. Can you just get over it? It's real. Now, every time that I told people that I felt comfortable telling that to, they came back and said, I know, I really wish that I could undo this for you. I can't. I love you. I'm here for you. They acknowledged that it was okay that I felt like this was a dream. I really wanted it to be a dream. I really wanted to wake up from it. And I just needed them to keep reminding me that this was not a dream, in a loving manner, but that they were going to be here for me for that. Be there for someone the way they need you to be, even if it's not the way you want to be. Maybe they need space. Maybe they just need you on the phone. Maybe they need you to sit by them while they're watching a movie. And maybe it's a movie you've seen several times, right? It doesn't matter. Maybe it's a movie you don't like. Like, if I had a relative that was grieving and they loved watching Wizard of Oz. That is a movie I don't like. Actually, the witch gives me nightmares. I just don't like it. But I would probably focus on crochet, but I would be on the couch with them at least if that made them feel comfortable. I'd watch it, sort of. I'd probably be crocheting and doing anything I didn't to not pay attention to it. But I'd sit there if that's what helped them feel better. Or if that's what made them, deal with it, even if it was difficult. Hi, Mach, how are you? Where were we? 28. Validate that it's okay to feel the way the person is feeling. Letting them know that they are entitled to feel how they feel. Not sitting there saying that you shouldn't be feeling this way. And criticizing them for feeling however they feel. They have lost somebody that they love, and they need to be able to feel as if they have a good place that they can be. And so we have to be able to allow them, right, to, there's, like you said, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. And so we have to be able to do that, right? We have to be able to be respectful of somebody in whatever area that they need to be. We have to be able to say, listen, we don't have to necessarily like this, but we have to be able to just be with them. And everybody does grieve differently. That is the important part, that we're sitting there in that whole thing, right? Let's see, where are we at? Okay. Respect the person's pace. You may say, oh my goodness gracious, I wish they'd hurry up. I don't know when I'm going to feel normal again. I just keep saying this new norm is not something I like. Right? We drove out to the beach after my dad was taken away. It was what he would have wanted us to do. Yeah. It's like going to the conference this week. I wanted to go, but there was a part of me that was like, I don't want to go. But I knew my aunt would want me to go. But I don't know where my pace is going to be. Like, my husband has a doctor's appointment tomorrow. He said to me, "Are you going to be up to going with me?" And I said, "I think so. I don't know if I'm going to be up to it. I may not be up to it. I don't know. I'm not sitting here with a schedule in my head right now. I can't. I don't know where, I'm like, if I have another night of 4 o'clock in the morning sleep, then you're just going to have to let me sleep. And I love you, but you're just going to have to let me sleep." And he's okay with that. This is, my pace is different than my mother's pace and Josh's pace, than Christina's pace, than my cousin's pace. We've all lost Patty, but we all are going to walk down this path of grief differently. Every solitary one of us. Checking in often, especially in difficult days. That's what people did with me. "We're here for you. I'm here if you need to talk. Are you eating? Are you getting rest? You know, how are you feeling today? What's going on?" They checked in with me almost every day, right? A view of grief as ever present and shifting day by day. Absolutely. They checked in with me. So even when it's hard, check in with that person. And if they don't text you back and they take a day or two to text back, maybe even put it, "You don't have to text me back. I just want to make sure you're okay." Have them send a smile, a heart or something. Let them know, I see you, but I can't respond to this right now. Let them know it's okay, even if it's just, holding the message and hitting the heart button. They know that, I'm here and I see you and everything, but don't expect a lot. And then this is the last one. We'll do the other 32 because they're too good, and I'll be here for another hour. I want to go through these because they're really good. Understand that the person may experience grief flare-ups months and years later. And we're going to end. I think that's a good one. And then again, we'll do the next section on Saturday. I absolutely becomes a friend over time. Yep, it does. I absolutely agree with that. Josh and I we had our first anniversary. It was New Year's. We got married in July of 07. This was New Year's. This was July or December of 2007. Now, my grandfather, my papu, had been gone since 1998, right? My message are open, of course, for Christina too. Well, I will let her know that for sure. Anyway, and so we were in a store, and it just a trigger warning. It happened to be a liquor store because we were getting a bottle of Asti, and we were going to go home and have some shrimp and so forth and celebrate New Year's. It was our first New Year's Eve. My mom had Christina, and there was a bottle of scotch with this device that would help pour the scotch. And my grandfather had a scotch every afternoon. And it did. It helped him with his muscle spasms and, his multiple sclerosis and so forth. And he would have that. Unless he was on antibiotics, and then my grandmother wouldn't allow it. But anyway, and she had one arm that was with polio and one arm that was working. So she would pour this. She would use this as the aid to be able to pour this bottle, right? Well, the thing was, as I saw that, that's all I needed to see. Mind you, my grandfather passed away December 31st of 1997. Okay? So all I needed to do was see that bottle. I'm in the middle of the store, absolutely weeping my eyes out. And Josh is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm okay. Let's get this and let's get out of here." And I'm in the car just crying because what in the heck is the matter with you? And I told him, about what I had saw in the store. It was all it needed to take was seeing that, remembering my grandfather, and that was it. And the fact that it was New Year's Eve, and that's all I needed. you know, that's all I needed to be able to remember that moment, right? I accidentally had the same hair. I accidentally had the same hair as my great aunt one day, years after her death. I saw a glimpse of it in the mirror while I twirled the same strand of hair, and it sent me bawling. Absolutely. When Josh and I changed our wedding date, and we just decided on July 21st, right? And I was in the car and I said July 21st, and I just started crying. He goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I just realized that was my grandfather's birthday." I mean, it's those little things. Or sometimes I'll see something that will remind me of my dad, and I'll go, okay, something little or something like that. So, it can be the moments like, sitting there and doing that little short of Mocha, and the phone is ringing and realizing Patty's never going to call again, seeing that sunset as we go to the doctor. It was the most beautiful, spectacular sunrise I have ever seen. And I'm just picturing her at the beach. Today, I sent a little meme to my mother and Christina and Josh, and it was this woman on the beach. And there was a thunderstorm or active weather coming in, right? And she's sitting on this chair at the beach, totally ignoring the fact that there's a storm coming. And I guess there was like a tornado or something coming through. She was totally ignoring all that. She was sitting on the chair and she was looking back like, well, what's the big deal? Because she was enjoying the view. And I said in the message when I sent it to everybody, I said, this would have been Patty. And I started crying because I'm thinking of my aunt and the love for the beach that she has. So expect that they may, years later, see something. I don't think I'll ever see somebody, that smokes and I won't think of my aunt. I'm not going to see shells and not think of my aunt. Somebody surf and not think of her. So be prepared for somebody that's in your life that has something like that they just start crying at the drop of the hat. It's that simple. I realized I sat with my chair at the same tilt angle as my birth mother. It made me cry so I get you. Absolutely. It's weird sometimes. The littlest things bring you to that, right? So we're going to stop at 32. We'll do a part 2. I will change the thumbnail to say part 1 and part 2 because I think all of these are really good, and I want to hit each one of them. I really found this article because a lot of people do not know what to do when you are going through somebody with grief. And so if one of these or several of these or even all of these go, man, 64 ways of being there and meeting somebody in the middle of grief, I need to have these in my back pocket. These are all things we can have in our back pocket, not only for the person going through the grief, the person in the midst of the grief. These, just being able to read these things and going, yep, this is okay. That's okay. Oh yeah, this was okay. That was okay. It was actually very helpful to me to realize that a lot of the things that we talked about, I could hit on every solitary one of them and say, yep, I went through that. Yeah, I went through that. And so I think this is so, so helpful. Hi, Auntie Monkey Pants. How are you doing, hun? Well, you know what? I said to everybody that this was for me. You all were there at the diagnosis of Patty. You were there throughout her journey on chemo. You were there when she came to visit. You were there for when they stopped doing chemo and she went into hospice. And you were there the last little bit as we were just waiting for the phone call. And you were there the night she passed. You all have been on this journey, and I'm not the only one who's lost somebody. And I'm also somebody going through fibromyalgia and losing somebody. And I will do a whole other thing about how you deal with grief when you're somebody that is dealing with fibromyalgia, because that brings a whole nother level on it that people may not realize. So if you are living with somebody with fibromyalgia, or you're taking care of somebody with fibromyalgia, or you have somebody with fibromyalgia in your life and they are grieving, you need to understand how to be a little bit more gentle with them because their body's hurting. My body is still not right. And that's part of understanding that condition and understanding how to come beside them in somewhat of a very different way than if you're going to come beside somebody that's not dealing with fibromyalgia. So with that being said, we're going to stop at 32. on Saturday, right? We'll do it at 8 o'clock on Saturday. We'll do part 2 of the rest of these things. And then I will go ahead and put them in the description below. I do want to say for the people coming in, I didn't think that there was going to be a service for Patty. I don't know if it's going to be videotaped or whether it's going to be live, stream somehow. I don't know. But however it's done, I will figure out a way to either share it on the screen, be able to do a screen recording of it, be able to do something so you all can see it in some way. I don't know whether it's going to be live video. I don't know quite how it's going to be, but there is going to be something. And I will make sure that it's available here so you guys can be a part of that. You all have been part of the journey. That's part of the journey. And so I know that they're going to be doing something in Daytona Beach for that. And so I just don't know all of the details yet. But that is going to probably be about 2 months down the road before that takes place. And so when it does, however it does, I'll let you all know so that you all can be a part. Those that want to be a part of it can be a part of it. My dad also lived by making the best of the time you have. We sat with grief enough to appreciate that life for its beauty. Absolutely. And with that being said, we've changed a couple things. First of all, our Bible verses come out every day. I'm going to get off here and do a devotion that needs to get done for today. Our Bible verses come out every day. I want to make sure that also we're putting other shorts in there too as well. And I know I haven't been too active in doing those because of everything going on, but we're starting that. We are going to do jokes instead of it coming out, the blessed laugh jokes, which I think is a really important thing to laugh, even in the midst of grief. It does help even when you don't feel like laughing. We were doing them on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. We're changing that, and we're going to start doing jokes on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday. There was a joke that came out today. There was another short. There's a short that's, I guess, gone viral with a song that says anxiety, and I got a snapshot of Mocha. It's the cutest little short. And so I did one of her. It was really cute. And so that's on there. So we're going to start doing jokes on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And if you need a laugh, you can go back to those jokes. They're in a playlist and go and watch them. If you just need to laugh, even in the midst of maybe a difficult time, go back and watch them. They've certainly improved a little bit. They were getting more videos and animation in there and so forth. So we're up in the game a little bit. On Wednesdays, and we may increase this, but for right now, on Wednesdays, we're going to start doing something called, I haven't decided yet if I want to call it Flashback Wednesday or, something. We'll come up with some kind of name. I just haven't come across with it yet. But we're going to start going back to our first live that we did January 13th of 2023? No, 24. And we're going to start going through that entire live, and it'll take me a while to go through it, but we're going to pull out clips throughout the live, and it'll be a screen recording. Sometimes maybe it's way back Wednesday. I love that. Yeah. My aunt loved the beach. She water girl. I love that. Way back Wednesday. I love that. And we can just put way back if I ever not want to call it Wednesday, if I want to put more on them. But we're going to go back to the first live. Our name may be cut off or something like that because I'm going to have to screen record them and then put them into a short form. But I want to go back to our first live and then start going through all of the lives we've done and pull out little nuggets and make them into shorts. So they'll be anywhere between about a minute to 3 minutes long. And we're going to start going back and, doing that. You can also then take those short and relate a video. So if there's stuff you guys haven't seen that you find that is helpful to you to watch, it helps us to rewatch those things again too as well. And so, you will do that. We'll start going through and start tackling the first one and the second one and so forth. So we're still going to keep our quotes coming up on Mondays, and we're still going to do we've changed are reflecting on those quotes to, instead of doing it every week, because we're doing the devotions every week or every day, we're going to do the quotes to just kind of go back and look at them. We're going to do the quotes every month. So we're going to gather all the quotes together in one video, come and put them in one video, and then put the Bible verses we feel connect with those and how to look at those from a biblical perspective. So we're going to do that in one video for the month instead of trying to do one for each quote. It's just going to get too much. And so we're going to do that. So there's just a couple of changes that we're going to do to just do it. And we're going to start doing more lives. We're going to have topics. Another thing that I wanted to kind of quickly talk about is we want to do some panels. I've decided that Mom and I decided that we'd like to do some panels. I'd like to do a panel of single mothers. I was a single mother for several years before I married Josh. I'd like to do a single mother panel. So if there's some single mothers that would like to get together, I want to do a panel on also mothers of teenagers and adult children, as we could do several of these panels together. That could be advice that we could give the mothers that haven't had children yet, or that are raising them probably from the age of 1 to 5. And I'd love to have that. I'd absolutely love to have that. That would be really precious to have. I'd love to have that. But I want to do like a panel of, like, us as now that have teenager or adult children could give advice to the younger moms of things to go, don't miss out on this. Don't worry about this. Kind of things that we wish, as we look back at moms, we had somebody lovingly say to us, don't worry about this. Don't be so concerned about this. Don't. So anyway, I'd like to do a panel on that. And I'd like to start trying to do some panels where we get some people together. And I'd like to kind of keep those, like if we get a single mothers panel, I'd like to have those people for that, maybe couple of shows, because I want people to start getting familiar with that panel together. So if you're interested in any of that or participating in that, here is our email address. And if you are also a channel that would like to have a shout out done, we're going to start getting back to shout outs next week. If you want a shout out done, please also email us here. Put in the title, shout out. Go ahead and send us a video of your channel with a link also to your channel, and we will take a look. I'm not promising that we will do a shout out for your channel, but if we feel that it would work with us, then we will be more than glad to do it. We're going to be on My Other's Keeper, April the 1st. We're going to be on Big Jack's. You've seen me do a couple of his after shows. I will be on his on the 6th, and I will also be on the Source on the 19th. So we've got some things coming up, guys. We did cross the 1,500 mark. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you all. That, I get the wonderful connection. You guys get the wonderful connection. Mama gets the support, and I am tremendously grateful for all of it. I think out of one of the things that I could say about all these wonderful 64 things, realize that your connection with somebody while they're grieving, you just being there in that moment, sitting with them in their grief, that has been the most reassuring and loving things that you guys could do for our family. It has been tremendous to know I'm not alone. I've got all these wonderful people surrounding me. And I know in certain chats I've kind of not been there. It's because I've been focusing on this blanket and I'm so close to being done, and it has to go to the individual this Sunday. But I've needed some time to just pull away. And it's just because I needed to keep the energy I had, because it takes energy to grieve. It really does. And so just even being in chats take energy that at times I just don't have. So if I haven't been in chats and I haven't been around and all that kind of stuff, no, it's because I've needed to pull back to be able to reserve what energy I had available to me. So it's not because I haven't wanted it, but I'm telling you, in the back scenes, I've had so much wonderful connection. And those people there that I'll never, ever try to do this life by myself. That is why that candle's back there. And we're going to start coming out. I thought about making an emoji for it, but I thought if I make an emoji, then I'm kind of, doing without people that are members. And it's never expected. It is appreciated. It's never expected. But we're going to start with the number 5. 5 is my favorite number. And I'm going to tell everybody, okay, we're going to put 5 in the chats, the very beginning of this. When you come in, put a 5. And that means you're lighting your candle. And the fact that nobody, we're all here for each other, just like those 600 women in that sanctuary. We're all there for each other. We're all there to support each other. We weren't trying to do this thing we call life by ourselves. So a number 5 is just going to mean I'm lighting my candle. I'm here. I'm here to support. I'm here to let you all know I'm not by myself. So if a 5 is ever in the chat, a 1 is prayer and good thoughts and all that kind of stuff. But a 5 is I've lit my candle. And it can be a virtual candle. It doesn't have to be a real thing, right? When anybody light their candle and walk away and forget it's there. It can be an electric candle. It can be just in your mind. But we're just going to put a 5 in the chat. And it just means, listen, I've lit my candle. Even if it's just in my mind, right? That image of that in your head to say, nobody's ever by themselves. Nobody's alone. We're all here for each other. And I can't thank you enough in the midst of this grief to be able to be so thankful that I've had that. Now we're going to take a moment and just thank our members. It's never expected. It's always appreciated. But we're going to do it because these are so good. I don't want to, I feel like if I feel like if, as I was going, oh, these will be, they're not going to be that. They're so impressive that I've literally been able to hit on every solitary one of them. And I'm thinking, I could get through this list pretty quickly. And I'm like, I can't. I really can't. And I think that if somebody can listen to this and say, oh, I can do that. I can do that. How many of us have sat with somebody grieving and we have no idea what to do? Right here, this girl had no idea what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Am I saying the right thing? Am I not saying the right thing? What do I do? Right? To have 64 things that you could refer back to, right? To say, okay, this is what they're going through. This is okay. This is what I can do. Because I think when people are grieving, we feel so hopeless, right? There's a sense of I don't know how to fix this. I feel like I feel so useless to that other person. Do you all realize you haven't been useless to me? You haven't been useless to me. Not one moment. You weren't useless the night Patty left this world. The 2 people I called that I was literally, I'm telling you, the whole phone was just going like this. I was shaking. I have never shooken like that in my life when I've gotten the news. I was literally just shaking, going, this is just a dream. This can't be real. I'm imagining this, and then I've got to go tell my daughter. You guys are not useless. You haven't been useless. You saying, I'm so sorry for your loss, has not been. I have felt every hug. I have felt every care. I have felt everything. My mom has. Josh has. Christina has. We were going to the darn, conference, and I'm sitting there as Christina's driving, and I'm like, I'm glad we got people to laugh. You guys haven't, but at times we feel as if, what do I do? What do I say? How should I act? And we have to have tools to be able to do it. And I probably could go, hi Flex, I probably could go through this, right? I probably could go through this and be able to give the same advice as I'm giving now. But as I'm going through this list, the loss of Patty is so fresh. It is so new that I can sit here and literally go, I don't have to think about this because I'm living it. I'm living this right now. And we have to remember there are things we can do with people that are grieving. We have to be able to put things aside. If they are walking and they have faith in Jesus, we have to say, listen, that's the way they believe. Because for me to know that's where Patty is, she was saved, has been so comforting. It is not the time to try to convince them of something else. You have to say, guess what? This is what they believe, and I'm going to respect that. It's not what I believe. Well, and that's okay, because it's what they have to do to get through. It's what they needed. And so I'm going to allow them to talk about it. It doesn't mean I have to believe that, but I need to allow them a place to talk and not try to fix it. And that has been tremendously comforting to me. And I even talked about telling Patty's story, and I thought, I can't tell Patty's story without telling that she was saved. There's no way. That was part of her legacy. It's part of her story. It's part of who Patty was. And there was times this week where you all carried me, but also God gave me a lot of strength to get through every solitary day. So if we're going to go back to trying to find common ground with people, we have to realize that there's people that grieve, that have different beliefs about where you go at the end of it all. And we need to be saying, you know what? We're not there for that. We're there for the person. We're there so they don't feel by themselves and they don't feel alone. They've gone through a loss. Patty was like a big sister to me. I thought about it the other day. And I thought, one regret I have, and I said, I know she knows it, and I'll be able to tell her one day, is she used to say, you stopped calling me aunt. And I did. And there was reasons behind that. But one of the reasons I also stopped calling her aunt was she never really felt like an aunt. She felt like a big sister to me. I didn't have any sisters or brothers. My dad and her were 16 years apart. She was the baby of the family. I didn't have any sisters. She felt like this big sister to me. I don't feel like I've lost an aunt. I feel like I've lost a big sister. And it's such a different feeling than I think that I would feel because of just the relationship we had. We had our struggles. I sat there a couple times this week going, she's not there to bug the dickens out of me anymore. Can she call me and bug the dickens out of me, and I was sitting there going, she can't do that anymore. But I'm so glad that she was able to come up here and be a part of it. So I hope that this is helping, and I'm so glad that this is helping too. There's those 5s. The 5s are now going to be for you guys lighting that virtual candle in your head so you realize that you're not by yourself. There's no fixing it, and that is the hardest part for most people. That is so true. But if we know what to do, if we know this gives us some kind of tools to do. If, like I said, if somebody called me up and said, get dressed, let's go out to dinner. I go, no, I don't want to. But you'll feel better after you go out to dinner. No, I don't want to. Okay, then what do you want to do? Would you just bring something to me and let's sit down and watch a movie? And maybe it's a movie we've seen 2 or 3 times. It may be a sad movie. It may be a happy movie, whatever it is. And if you really want to go out to dinner, then go out to dinner with somebody else at another time. Your friend's telling you they don't have the emotional or physical well-being to go out. And that has to be accepted. Because to me, to go out to a noisy restaurant right now would be overwhelming. A lot of my life last week was overwhelming. The simplest things were overwhelming to me. And we have to realize that. Part of it is just my lack of sleep, and my sleep schedule is so off. But we're also going to have another topic because I really think that it's important to understand that we have got to also realize that if somebody is going through a fibromyalgia diagnosis and they are dealing with grief, you have got to handle them in a very different way. This is, they're not telling you I'm hurting and making it all up in their head. We also have to talk about, if you're dealing with somebody who's dealing with fibromyalgia and going through grief, how do you deal with them? And I don't mean to say that in that sense, but how even all these things are wonderful. But let's put all of this, let's put grief in. You're dealing with the pain, you're dealing with the loss of somebody, and your body is attacking you. That is what I felt like last week. Sleep was non-existent. My body hurt every time I got up. My pain, my whole body, everything hurt. So how do you deal with that as an individual going through it, or as a caregiver or a friend? Exactly. And one person said to me, positive stress is stress too. Absolutely. Somebody said to me, your body there's been a lot going on in my life even prior to Patty's passing. A lot of it was going on. There's a lot of stuff. Patty passed, and guess what? Body keeps count. And it literally said, and it was all dumped. And my pain level that's usually sitting at a 2 or 3 about every day, which is exhausting at a 2 or 3, it was sitting at an 8 or 9. And it's maybe come down to a 6 or 7. Hi, Yadira. Maybe a 6 or 7. It's still there because it's said, okay, your body's under stress. So guess what? We're going to feed it. We're just going to feed it. And there was times I literally had to say to Josh, you've got to hold me because I'm going to fall, because walking was so painful. It was just so exhausting for everything. So we have to have a discussion too, from a fibromyalgia standpoint, of how do you have somebody do that? How do you sit with somebody do that? Right? Well, at least I know that's, you know what, Match, that is so comforting. It took about 2 months to get close to normal. That is just so comforting. You don't know how comforting that sounds. Because I said to somebody, a therapist said, it's important you get sleep. And I'm like, yeah, 4 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, I'm staring at the ceiling. I just sit there and lay there till I fall back asleep again. And if I sleep till 1 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I just sleep till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It sounds ridiculous, but it's the only way right now I can go to sleep. And I really haven't been hungry all day. I'm finally hungry. I had a protein drink at 1 o'clock. I'm finally hungry. So my whole schedule of eating and sleeping has just been so off, and I had that blanket to get done in crochet, and I had that project to kind of distract myself. And yep, you get rest when you can. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm taking one day by one day. But you know what? You guys have been such a force to be there for me and my family. I cannot thank you all enough. Now we're going to take a moment. It is never expected. It is appreciated, but we just want to take a moment. Plus it gets us to dance a little bit, right? I'm starting to come back to life a little bit, but I think that there's going to be times where we're going to do streams and I'm going to mention the word Patty and I'm just going to start crying. I can't help it. But at the very end of this, there's Elvis, so I get to see Elvis. But at the very end of this, there's also, Elvis says, thank you very much. And I want people to realize that I know memberships are there. It is never expected. It is appreciated. But at the very end has the disco balls. I want you to remember how awesome you all are. You are awesome disco balls. But also that we thank you very much just for showing on up every time we do a stream when you can. And we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you being part of the conversation. And so
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
give me a moment to look at Elvis. I never get tired of looking at Elvis. If you can't sleep, do something. It gets worse if your focus is not sleeping. I could get up and crochet, but what I'm afraid is if I crochet, then I won't go to sleep. So what I do is I just flip through my phone. And eventually, I've fallen asleep with my phone like this, and eventually I fall asleep. I just literally go through reels and shorts, and eventually I get sleepy enough and then I fall asleep. And that's what I've been doing, and that's what I'll continue to do. I'll keep doing the thing, right? So I think that the problem that happened the last time we were live is I've started taking things off of our StreamYard library because you're only allowed a certain amount of hours to hold on to stuff. And of course, we really don't want to pay for extra hours to hold on to it. So I've been downloading it. So I thought the earbuds were the problem. They're not. I've been downloading it and actually putting it on several of our other just channels that are there. We're going to do anything with them, but we've just taken them off, uploaded them to like Mr. Blester Crochet's channel, made them private so that way our stuff is there. It's not, we have it as a backup to a backup. And so I think the last time there was a lot of stuff that I needed to get rid of. StreamYard seems to have a problem when the computer is holding on too much memory and too much stuff. It just does some funky stuff. And I think that that's exactly what was happening because we've been on here for an hour and 45 minutes and this hasn't backed out once. So that was the problem, I believe. But it's so much nicer not to have the cord that goes here, to be able to have just the earphones and not have the cord. So I'm really thrilled that Josh was able to figure that out. But I think that was the problem. And we will not do that again. We learned. I often wake up about 3 or 4 a.m. if something is bothering me, and I usually just watch a movie. Yeah. I turn on, I listen, I just sit there and we just do. I think that that's the biggest thing. Do what you can, not what you think you can. And if you can't do it, don't do it. That was my whole thing. And it's still my thing. I've said to Josh, I don't know what time his doctor's appointment's tomorrow, but I said, if I'm sleeping, he said, I know, let you sleep. I'm like, yep. As it may be a late night. And I've actually, usually I've laid down for a nap somewhere in the afternoon a little bit because, I needed that. And there's some days I still do that. But even if it's just a half an hour nap, but I force myself not to do that a little bit so that I do fall asleep, but that doesn't work. So I finally said to myself, well, Mary, you'll fall asleep when you fall asleep. Yep. Oh, we have that on the channel. I've listened to a gentleman. His name is Stephen Dalton. I love him. But when your mind's just racing, it's hard, to just get calm and so forth. And I'm not looking forward to the upcoming season of change at all. I am not. I'm not looking forward to the rainstorms that are coming and all that at all. No. I'm not looking forward to them. I would like to just skip past spring and summer and go right back to fall. Because I'm like, if this is anywhere the weather has been just past a little bit, the wind out there is horrendous outside today. We couldn't even take Mocha for a walk because the wind was just too bad. And I think it's supposed to snow, possibly, I don't know, or a snowy mix or whatever. But, I can type it in here real quick just to see. But the wind yesterday was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And I'm not looking forward to the storms. And when the storms hit, I'm awake. He could be sleeping right through it, and I'm awake till they pass. Yeah. Why is there weather in the area like that? There shouldn't be. That's the code for it. Nightbot's being a nightbot. Oh, it didn't want to do it for some reason. I don't know. It didn't like it. I don't know. There's not supposed to be a space. I think there is a space. I know we've done it. I just know the wind has been something else. What was it? It's 36 degrees. It's supposed to snow. It feels like 23. And that's not it either. But the wind gusts are like 30 miles an hour. So it's like, I don't know why it won't do it. I don't know. So, and we had a wind advisory the day we were going. I don't know why. Doesn't like the weather today. I'll have to look at the code. So I'm not looking forward to the. I am not looking forward to the weather at all. Not one iota. I don't know why that's coming up that way. I'll have to take a look at it. The wind. The wind. But anyway, I've actually told my mother to. You were born and raised in Ohio? Yeah. We don't live far from Shawshank Prison. But I told my mom to take Mocha's leash. And I said, oh, I know where that is. To take her leash in the bedroom with her so that if by chance we have one of those alerts to go seek shelter in the middle of the night, all we have is her laundry room. We don't have the basement where we are. To have it in her room over the next months ahead until fall comes back again. My favorite time of year. Fall will forever be fall and then winter. I said, do me a favor, just keep it in your room, and that way if something happens you can throw it on in the middle of the night and she's on a leash. And so she said, that's actually a really good idea. I said, hopefully we will never have to resort to any of that, but if we do, and during the day we tend to have her leash on her almost all the time. We have a like a house leash because of Mocha's upbringing and her issues at times. We have it so that when she's needs to be corrected, she can be lovingly corrected. So there's a leash on her all the time right now for a while. She seems to do better with that. When she's on a leash, house leash, and we can take it, she seems to do better because then we can control, make her do what she needs to do. And but at night we take it off, and then I said to my mom, you better start keeping it right by your bed. And then that way, if we ever get those calls in the middle of the night, you can just slip it right on her, and then we can get to shelter. But hopefully we won't need that. I'm praying very diligently that none of that will occur with any need for that over the next couple of months. I'm tremendously praying for that because I really don't want to. So if you ever get me in the middle of the night and there's a storm raging outside because I need to distract myself from hearing it till it's over with, and then once it's over, then I can go back to sleep. I can't sleep when there's rain, but when there's a storm and there's lightning and all that kind of stuff, and then you get this girl cannot sleep through that. I can't. I think it's part of the I was raised in Florida where there was hurricanes, and so because of that, I can't do it. So anyway, y'all, I'm going to let you go. I know I was going to be done at 8 o'clock so I could send you over to My Other's Keeper, and she is on now. And so we're going to have discussions. We'll finish the rest of these on Saturday. We'll have another discussion about fibromyalgia and grief. We're going to have other discussions. I'd like to be able to start doing panels. Different panels You do not have to have a YouTube channel to participate in those panels, but I'd like to start doing that if you're interested, and start getting people together and groups together to talk about them. And I think that would be a great, great idea. So I'm going to let y'all go. I'm going to go do the devotion for today, which is living in grief, I think it is. Like I said, that devotion topic couldn't be more perfect. And I will see you on the next one, Saturday, 8 o'clock. We'll do the next hour and a half, and I will send you over to Alfonso after that. Hopefully you'll come over there and support him. I'll talk to y'all later. Again, thank you all so much for being there. Remember, be proud of being yourself. Everyone else is taken. We have you covered. You certainly have had us covered. And remember, keep crocheting that connection. No crochet hook required. Love you all. See you on the next one. Goodbye. Take care of yourself. Have a good night, everybody.